So the question you've been asked a million times, but our audience might not have heard it. How'd you get the Keifer gig?
All right. I have been asked this question a good amount of times. I never mind answering it, man.
I'm sure.
It's a funny story. So it's not the shortest story, but I'll try to rein in it a little bit. So when I moved here and joined that band, there was another band in town who was doing some shows called Naked Beggars. And Naked Beggars was Eric Brittingham's band, side band at the time with his wife at that time, Inga. Right. So, yeah. So anyways, I got to know Eric. We had played a couple shows together. That's kind of when I met Eric. And they were looking for a utility musician, like piano, background vocal, or keys, background vocals, whatever. Turns out my sister-in-law, or my future sister-in-law, at that time, she was kind of the perfect candidate. She could sing like a bird, play piano, she could play fiddle, she could, she could write. She just kind of did it all. So her name was Christine. I kind of sent her to their camp, and they hung out and got along great. And she wanted to be into the band, and for its entirety. So that was how I met Eric. And after that, Jeff moved here, joined the band. That's how I met Jeff. Fast forward a couple years, I worked at Guitar Center, and I ran the, kind of the vintage and platinum high-end bougie guitar division. And if they ever need anything, they'd hit me up and I'd take care of them. And they sent Fred in because Cinderella was going to be some shows, and Fred needed a couple things, and he was in from LA and they're rehearsing. So I met Fred. Fred got to know me a little bit and was asking about my band. And at the time, it was still Caprice. And he asked when we were playing again. We happened to be playing a couple nights later. He came out and watched our set and then hit me up and was just gushing about the band. And, was going to make comments about, I'm going to tell Tom, we got to take you guys on tour, blah, 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 blah. It was very sweet, And Fred's always been super cool. Me, all those guys have. So the last guy in Cinderella I meet is Tom. And he got sent to me because he had a real valuable old guitar he didn't want to take on the road anymore, but he wanted something similar for it, but like a new custom shop version to replace it, a Telecaster. And so he got sent to me, and I sold him one, and got to talk and got to know him a little bit. And he's one of those dudes that if you've never met him, he's real guarded and he's real quiet and he doesn't talk very much. But once he gets to know you, and once you kind of get over that hump, then he's a little bit more of an open book. You know what I mean? And just the sweetest guy. So I helped him with a couple things along those lines. And I don't even remember what it was he was looking for, but he hit me up and came in one day looking for something. And he was sitting at my desk, and he's talking about, this and this and blah, blah, blah. And I may come back and see you in a couple of weeks. He goes, I did this solo record, and I'm going to go out and try to tour it next year. And I need to get a different amp. I'm thinking about getting a different amp. I've been taking these old Marshalls, the same old Marshalls out since 1986. And they're crazy loud, and we did a lot of club gigs on this first run, and I'm just not sure how durable they're going to be, and on and on and on. And, just kind of said that. And I'm at my desk, and all I said was, I just casually said, "Oh, you're doing a solo record?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "It's strange." He goes, I've never played with anybody but Cinderella. He goes, "That's been my band forever." He goes, I haven't played with different musicians in, since 1986.
Yeah.
Fred's been in the band since 86,
Yeah.
And he goes, it's the only band I've played in. I don't know what that even looks like. He goes, so I got to put a band together. And I just very casually said, well, if you need help with that, hit me up. That's all I said. So anyways, a couple days, like 4 or 5 days later, I get a phone call from Tom. "Hey, are you going to be at the shop today?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Cool. What time do you guys open?" I'm like, 10. He goes, "Cool. I'm going to come down and see you." I'm like, "All right." I get there, walks in right at 10 o'clock, comes into my office, and the room's just full of like high-end guitars and amps, right? Closed doors. And he goes, "Yeah, so show me a couple things. What you got?" So I plug into an amp, and here you go, check this guitar out. And he's like, "Oh man, this sounds great." He's playing, and it's Tom Keifer. His vibrato is like 6 feet wide. It's just, sounds amazing. And he goes, "Oh yeah, it sounds killer." He goes, "Hey man, do me a favor." He goes, "Sit down and play real quick. Let me stand back here and just kind of listen to it and see how it sounds from 5-10 feet away. So I sat down and started playing, and I'm pretty sure if I had to guess, I probably sat down and started playing UFO riffs, having no idea that he's a massive UFO fan, specifically Shanker. And anyways, he's like, "Oh, that sounds badass. Yeah, Shanker, blah, blah, blah." So anyways, stop. All right, cool. It gives me some ideas. Hey, do you guys where's the acoustic section? Walk over, go to the acoustic room, sit down. We're playing a couple guitars. I'm handing a couple things. And we're in this kind of small room where all the high end stuff is. And there's a sliding door, and he reaches over and he slides the door shut. He goes, "So, did they ever let you leave here?" And I go, "Man, I clock out at 5 o'clock every day. Like, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "No, like, could you go on tour?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I got to put this band together. I love the way you play. I hear you're a good singer. Man, I'd love to get together and just jam and see what happens." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Right. And if you backtrack just a little bit, evidently that first time he was in the shop and I made that casual comment, he walked out the door and picked up a cell phone and called this guy named Blair Daly, who lives here in Nashville. Blair's a songwriter. Blair, I know because I met him at a party at James Michael's house when James lived here for a few years. You guys know who James is from 6 a.m. and produced all that Motley stuff like Saints of Los Angeles and stuff. James lived here for a few years, and we got to be good friends, and he's responsible for getting me to start playing golf again for the first time since my teenage years, and that has stuck thanks to him. And there's still golf clubs under the bus to this day. But he introduced me to Blair, and Blair's a songwriter, and they'd written together. And him and Blair used to come out and watch Caprice shows. And evidently when Tom went out, he called Blair because he was trying to figure out some guys. He called Blair and he goes, "Hey, man, do you know a guy named Tony Higbee?" And Blair goes, "Oh, my God, he'd be perfect. That's the dude." And that's how that happened. Turns out that Blair is Tom and Savannah's son's godfather. Blair, and I had no idea, and Blair and Savannah used to write all the time. And now Blair's part of this writing, a collaboration here in Nashville. I think people call them the Four Horsemen, and they're like this big songwriting group. I think it's him and maybe Marty Fredrickson and a couple other dudes, and they're writing all this stuff on people's records. And Blair's just one of the nicest guys ever, just a great dude. But that's how that started. A couple weeks later, I'm playing a show at 12th and Porter with, it was early stages with the East Side Gamblers at that point, one of the, probably the first 6 months of the band. And people start walking up to the stage going, "Hey, man, Tom Keifer's here." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "He's in the back of the room." And I looked up and I could see his silhouette, But you got to understand, in Nashville, back anytime really, but especially then, a Tom Keifer sighting was like a Sasquatch sighting. It's like you knew he was around, but you just never saw him. It was just like he was lurking in the distance somewhere, and you just never knew. My drummer and Bombshell Crusher show up at a rehearsal. "Man, I saw Tom Keifer at Home Depot today." I'm like, "Really? What did he look like?" He goes, "Well, he was wearing like sweats and a t-shirt with a bunch of holes in it, but he had the rings and the necklaces on, and he still looked like Tom Keifer." And I'm just, okay, you don't argue with that. So you got a real distinct look. And now I've seen Tom on a bus for 10 years, and I know exactly the look that he's talking about because it's pretty much a daily occurrence. That's what he looks like at sound check every day. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. But anyway, so that's kind of where that started. And then, he actually was kind of interested in my whole band, but the other guys really couldn't commit to anything like that at the time. I brought in Paul Simmons, the drummer. Paul brought in Billy Mercer, the bass player. And then Tom brought Paul Taylor in, and that was the original incarnation of that band. And it's been 10 years ago now. So,
wow.